What happens when the very agency meant to protect America's air and water is accused of putting polluters first? In a heated Capitol Hill showdown, Congressman Adam Schiff confronted the new head of the EPA, Lee Zeldin, with explosive allegations. From slashing the budget in half to freezing programs that protect children from lead poisoning. Across the aisle, Senator Cynthia Lumis rose to defend him, calling the cuts bold leadership. Two lawmakers, one embattled EPA chief, and a fight over the air you breathe, the water you drink, and the future of environmental protection itself.
From California, Mr. Schiff is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Zeldin, you've only been at the EPA for a few months, but in that time, you've done more to dismantle this agency than probably all of your predecessors put together. That may be a source of pride for you, but it is not for the American people. You've unlawfully terminated grants without justification. You've fired and pushed out some of the best scientists who inform EPA's decision-making. You refuse to spend money that Congress has appropriated to the EPA by law. And you've launched a pro-polluter effort to delete dozens of environmental protections. On top of all this, you've launched an effort to overturn California's Clean Air Act waivers that improve the quality of air breathed by 40 million Californians and by millions more in other states who have adopted California's high standards. That effort, for which my colleagues have decided to eliminate the filibuster to achieve, is not exactly what anyone would call cooperative federalism. But it's your budget that's the ultimate proof of your priorities. You propose cutting America's environmental agency by 55%, meaning that in your view, and that of President Trump, more than half of the environmental efforts of the EPA, more than half of the efforts to make sure Americans have clean air and clean water are just a waste. They're just a waste. Meaning that Californians and people all over the country, when they breathe the air, thanks to your good work, it'll mean there's more diesel and more other particulate matter in the air. When they drink a glass of water, they may not be able to see it, but this water that Americans drink is going to have more chemicals like PFAS, forever chemicals in their water. This will be your good work. I want to be very specific about the legacy you're going to leave if you're successful in eliminating half of our efforts to clean our water and our air. Your legacy will be more lung cancer. It'll be more bladder cancer. It'll be more head and neck cancer. It'll be more breast cancer. It'll be more leukemia and pancreatic cancer, more liver cancer, more skin cancer, more kidney cancer, more testicular cancer, more colorectal cancer, more rare cancers of innumerable varieties. That will be your legacy. I don't know that that's a legacy that anyone should want to have. My kids are going to be breathing that air just like yours. My family's going to be drinking the water just like yours. We may not be able to pinpoint just who gets cancer because you've done away with half the budget of those looking out for our clean water and clean air. But it's going to be somebody's kids, it's going to be somebody's family. To put this in more specific terms, there are 22 grants frozen by the EPA focused on improving health and reducing pollution, many of which directly impact children. For example, one project in Santa Ana, California, provided funding to help detect and prevent lead poisoning in children. According to the census, about 10% of the population in Santa Ana are under the age of 9. With a population of about 310,000 people, that means that 31,000 children are at risk of lead poisoning in Santa Ana without this funding. What is it about this grant that you and EPA believe is problematic enough to freeze this funding and put potentially 31,000 children at risk?
Senator, who is the grant applicant?
This is to the city of Santa Ana.
You have the biggest,
And are
you have the
you-
biggest
are you-
state, so
and
we're
are
going to have to
you-
go through every single list of the grant.
Well,
By the way, with that wind up, by the way, I understand that you were an aspiring fiction writer. I see why.
Oh, yeah. Well, I understand your view that you can cut half of the agency and it won't affect people's health or their water, their air. That, to me, is a big fiction, Mr. Zeldin.
You've
and
forgot about the
if,
fact of cleaning up
I have
after
to think,
LA
Mr. Zeldin,
wildfires.
I think, Mr. Zeldin,
President when I was in San Diego.
if your children were
the
drinking
Tijuana
water,
River sewage crisis,
if your
apparently we're
children
going
were
out on our
drinking
own for
water
that.
in Santa Ana, Mr. Zeldin, maybe you wouldn't be so cavalier about whether there was lead in their water. Maybe you would give a damn instead of coming in here and suggesting that any grant that takes lead out of the water must be waste, fraud, or abuse because you
gentleman's
need
time has
because
expired.
you
Who said
need
that? The whole
the
thing,
money for a
everything
tax
you
cut
said,
for rich people
your time. It's all
because
make-believe.
you're totally beholden to the oil industry.
The
You could
gentleman's time.
you could give a rat's ass about how much
It's
cancer
because
your agency
you're trying to
causes.
destroy.
The
Impeach,
gentleman's
resist.
time has expired.
When Adam Schiff took the microphone, he wasted no time. He told Zeldin that in just a few months on the job, he had done more to dismantle the Environmental Protection Agency than all of his predecessors combined. Schiff wasn't speaking in vague generalities. He had a list, and every point was meant to sting. Grants terminated without justification. Some of the EPA's best scientists pushed out. Funds appropriated by Congress simply left unspent. And perhaps most controversial, a wave of rollbacks to environmental protections that Schiff claimed served only one purpose, to help corporate polluters. But Schiff saved some of his sharpest criticism for a decision to challenge California's Clean Air Act waivers, a move that threatened higher pollution levels for 40 million Californians, and millions more in other states that adopted California's stricter standards. He accused Zeldin of undermining cooperative federalism and then pointed to what he called the ultimate proof of Zeldin's priorities, a proposed 55% cut to the EPA's budget. In Schiff's telling, that meant half the agency's efforts to keep America's air and water clean were, in Zeldin's eyes, a waste. Schiff didn't stop there. He painted a vivid picture of what those cuts would mean for ordinary people. More diesel and particulate matter in the air, more dangerous. Chemicals like PFAS in the water. And then he took it to a darker, more personal level. More lung cancer, bladder cancer, breast cancer, leukemia, pancreatic cancer. A list so long and specific it left no doubt he was making the health stakes personal and real. My kids will breathe this air just like yours, Schiff said, warning that while we may never connect each cancer case directly to budget cuts, it's going to be somebody's kids. It's going to be somebody's family. Then he moved to an example, designed to cut through the politics. In Santa Ana, California, a grant to detect and prevent lead poisoning in children had been frozen. The city has about 310,000 residents, with 10% under the age of 9. That's 31,000 children potentially at risk without the funding. Schiff's point was clear. These weren't abstract budget numbers. These were young lives, and the danger was preventable. He asked Zeldin directly what was so problematic about that grant that it had to be frozen. Zeldin's response was measured, but to Schiff's ears, evasive. He asked for details on the grant applicant, then pivoted to process. Schiff didn't let it slide, firing back that if Zeldin's own children were drinking water in Santa Ana, he might care more. He accused him of dismissing any program that removed lead from drinking water as wasteful, all to fund tax cuts for the wealthy and satisfy the oil industry. The exchange turned personal, the tension in the room hard to miss. And then the tone shifted. Senator Cynthia Lumis took the floor and offered a completely different take on Zeldin's tenure. She praised him for making tough budget decisions in what she described as a dire fiscal environment, a national debt of $37 trillion and no end in sight. She criticized previous Democratic administrations for inflating the EPA's payroll and said that states should have a larger role in environmental protection through what she called cooperative federalism. Lumis celebrated Zeldin's rollback of the power plant rule, citing concerns from rural electric co-ops in her home state of Wyoming. She welcomed his push to approve state-managed coal ash programs in Wyoming and North Dakota, even highlighting innovative uses of coal like making asphalt and bricks. To her, Zeldin's leadership wasn't about dismantling the EPA. It was about focusing resources on its core mission while allowing states to manage their own environmental policies. This back and forth revealed a deeper philosophical divide. Schiff's view rested on the belief that environmental protection must be a strong, federally enforced guarantee, that clean air and water are rights, not privileges. He saw scientific consensus as the guiding force for policy and believed that without strict national standards, vulnerable communities would suffer most. Lumis, on the other hand, argued for scaling back federal authority in favor of state control. In her view, the EPA had grown bloated and overreaching, stifling local decision-making and economic growth. She framed deregulation as not only economically necessary, but environmentally responsible, trusting states to manage their own resources and protections. The problem with leaving these protections entirely to the states, Schiff warned, is that environmental harm doesn't stop at state borders. Airborne pollutants travel hundreds of miles. Rivers cross multiple jurisdictions. Climate change affects everyone. A patchwork of state policies, he argued, could leave entire regions exposed, and low-income communities would bear the heaviest burden. Beyond the political theater, the stakes of this debate are real and immediate. A frozen grant in Santa Ana isn't just a bureaucratic footnote. It could mean thousands of children drinking water with dangerous levels of lead. Budget cuts to environmental enforcement aren't just about numbers on a page. They're about the kind of air future generations will breathe and the diseases they may suffer as a result. Zeldin, for his part, framed his decisions as part of a broader efficiency and oversight push, insisting the laws would still be enforced. His supporters, like Lumis, see him as a reformer willing to make unpopular cuts for the sake of fiscal discipline and local control. His critics see him as a dismantler of safeguards that took decades to build, putting corporate interests ahead of public health. In the end, this wasn't just a clash between two lawmakers and an agency head. It was a microcosm of a national struggle, a tug-of-war between environmental stewardship and deregulation, between federal guarantees and state discretion, between the urgent warnings of scientists and the economic priorities of energy-producing states. And that's why this hearing matters. Because it's not just about what happens in Washington, D.C., it's about what happens in your city, your neighborhood, and your home. It's about the water in your tap and the air in your lungs, and as climate challenges mount and health risks evolve, the choices made now will echo for generations. The question is, when those choices are made, will they be made with your family's health in mind or someone else's bottom line? If you believe these stories need to be told, and that the stakes are too high to ignore, hit like, share this video, and subscribe for more deep dives into the decisions shaping our future. Your voice matters, and together, we can keep the spotlight where it belongs.